Hey guys, welcome. Today we're going to talk about a slick fitness tracker that I've been testing for just over a year. Which one? This one, the Whoop 3.0. It's designed to be a fitness tracker, a sleep monitor, a health tracker in essence, all in one. And I'm going to share with you my thoughts having worn it for a year and whether it's worth buying one. If you're new here, then welcome. My name is Brendan and I'm here to help you achieve success without putting your health, fitness or mental well-being at risk, but ultimately to get you to where you want to be. So how are we going to structure this video? Well, quite simply, we're going to look at a number of areas. We'll look at the functionality of the Whoop 3.0. We'll look at what it measures, the accuracy around that tracking, any accessories we can buy, because who doesn't like accessories, and then the pros and cons or my thoughts around whether it is actually worth buying, having worn it for more than 12 months. So let's start at the beginning. The Whoop 3.0 is a slick fitness tracker which tries to do everything all in one. But what do you immediately notice? Well, there's no watch face. There's nothing to indicate how you're getting on or any LCD display. Is that a bad thing? Not really. Okay, so where do we start? First and foremost, I would like to say that the Whoop 3.0 is a terrible name for a really cool gadget. It doesn't have a watch interface, so you can't see what's going on, and it doesn't have any interactivity. It is literally just a strap. So as I'll show you now, to put it on and off, it is constructed like this. So you have a metal strap and it has obviously the sensors underneath, which you just slide on and click away. It is waterproof. I've worn it in the shower, I've worn it in the pool, I've worn it in the sea, and it's generally withstood those pretty well. The battery life is also pretty good because it lasts around 4 or 5 days, and the best part is you don't need to take it off, because to recharge it, you simply do this. You simply take the charging case, which is this very cool little bit of kit, you take it on the top and you slide it on top. What you'll see then is you'll see that some of the lights light up, and that means that it's charging away. So you don't need to take it off when you're sleeping, you don't need to put it on a stand. You can literally just wander around whilst wearing it and it will charge your Whoop. It does work as a 24/7 health monitor, and it will monitor your fitness tracking. You do need to connect to the app to be able to synchronize and see your activities. It will also tell you the battery life, so when you need to recharge. But to be fair, that's not too much of a hardship, bearing in mind that we are so used to opening apps on a regular basis at the moment. Is it comfortable? I think so. I must admit, I did struggle a little bit to begin with because it's got quite a coarse underside in this strap that comes with it. As an aside, I did buy a leather strap because I thought it looked a little bit smarter. It was nearly the best part of €50, which I think is quite expensive. And to be honest, I returned it after a week because, unlike this one, the strap loosened over time, and I felt that I was always constantly worried that it was going to slip, or the connection between the sensors and my arm wasn't as good as it could be. So the moral of the story is, don't bother upgrading. If you go for the base standard strap, that will be good enough, but it might just take a little bit of time for it to soften and loosen and be used to wearing it on your wrist. As far as fitness trackers go, there's a big push around giving more data to the fingertips of people like you and I, so the users. Now the Whoop 3.0 is no exception. Within the app, it will go through a number of key areas, and it will look at your strain, which is one of the unique selling points. It will look at your sleep, it will look at your recovery, it will look at your heart rate. There are key indicators in the Whoop metrics, and to be fair, they're quite interesting. Whether you will really get the full experience of using all of the key data that it shows to you, maybe not. It talks around resting heart rate and heart rate variability, and unless you are medically minded or you do some research, all you can see is the data going up and down and think, okay, what does that really mean? The app does give some insights and tells you that your resting heart rate has been elevated compared to a previous period of time, and that might indicate that you've taken on additional strain or that you need to increase your recovery. Those are quite nice insights, and I have no doubt that because it is quite an innovative company, over time Whoop will begin to add more and more insights to that, but it is reliant on you wearing the strap. As I'll come to in terms of the membership options, you do need to wear it for at least a month, and that month might not be the cheapest, but I'm going to come to that in due course. So when you open the app, it's all very intuitive, and I'll show you on screen here what it looks like. You have predominantly 4 areas. You have your overview, which is how you are doing today, your strain, which is the daily strain that it calculates based on your activities, your average heart rate for that period, and it generally works it out in a period of a week, and the average number of calories. So not only does it do it by day, but it will show you your trend over the week. It then goes on to talk about recovery, and this talks around your recovery versus your strain versus your recovery, i.e. how recovered you are compared to 100% or 0%, which I guess would mean that you're probably dead. I don't know, it doesn't actually tell you that, so we'll just gloss over that one. It looks at your heart rate variability, your resting heart rate, and your respiratory rates. Your heart rate variability shows over time how it's varied, funnily enough. For me, in the last week, it's gone from 130 something up to 160 and then back down to 130. To quote the app, as it says here, your heart rate has returned to its typical range after upward fluctuation. This trend is normal. So it's gone through and had a look at everything that I've done over the last 12 months and then calculated that this variance is probably symptomatic of taking on additional strain or activities I've done in the past, and then told you that actually there's nothing to worry about, which is nice. When you look at your RHR, your resting heart rate, it talks around the variable trends again. So for example, if I look at this again, it says your heart rate has returned to its typical range, 43 to 46, following a recent drop. Interesting. Watch for an upward trend, as that might indicate you need more rest. So what it's doing is it's saying the amount of activity that I've done and the amount of sleep that I've got means that I'm probably under recovered. And that's been reflected in my resting heart rate. So that's quite interesting to know, and I know that over the last week it's been quite a stressful one from work, and I've also tried to work out a bit more, so those indicators are probably fairly accurate. And then finally you've got the respiratory rate, and it just shows you your fluctuations in there, and again I'll read it to you. It says your respiratory rate is consistent within your typical range. This is a positive indication of normal bodily function. Well, that's good news. I don't really use the respiratory rate, and I'm sure the insights will get greater over time, but to be honest, it's quite interesting to see if anything does push it out or there are any variables, because then you can begin to tie it back to some of the other metrics that are in there. So I'm not sure whether that's really going to be useful in everyday life, but I think as far as if you're a bit of a data geek like I am, knowing what is changing and how it looks, I think is quite useful. Then you go on to sleep. So sleep is split across 3 areas. You've got performance, you've got hours versus need, and then you've got time in bed. So for example, your performance shows the amount of sleep that you've got, how good that sleep was. And you can think about it in terms of time in bed, disturbances, so the number of times that your sleep was disrupted while you were sleeping, the efficiency of that sleep, your respiratory rate, and your latency. Now, I must admit, I didn't know what latency meant, so I will read it directly from it. It says, latency measures how long it takes to fall asleep. To track latency, select sleep as an activity when you go to bed. Now, to be quite honest, I've never used that. I put my phone on charge in the front room, I keep the Whoop strap on, and I just fall asleep. So there's going to be a slight variance in there, but it is quite interesting to know if you do struggle to get to sleep, it might be one that is worth trying. But for me, I'm very fortunate when the moment the head hits the pillow, I am out. So for me, latency is not something that I'm too fussed about tracking. If I look at the response for this week, it says 40.7% of your time asleep was spent in REM. This might indicate your body's making up for not getting enough REM sleep recently, and that would then tie through to the fact that it's been a stressful week. I've tried to work out more, and so I'm needing more recovery, and so the body is trying to work harder to recover, but it needs more sleep to recover, and then it obviously all flows through. That then ties through into the strain per day, and that's the USP that I've talked about a moment ago in terms of Whoop takes all this information into account and works out what your daily strain should be. So today, based on 49% recovery, build an additional 4.8 strain to reach your optimal goal of day strain 11.0. So therefore, when you're going to record an activity or you're going to do some exercise, what it's trying to say is get to a level strain of 11, which means that you are then not only getting the appropriate recovery, but you're also pushing the body to create those gains and improve your health and fitness. Quite cool, really. With sleep, you have the performance. As I said, that's just tracking how well you slept over that period of time. You also have the hours versus need, so the amount of time that you did sleep versus the amount of time that the app thinks that you do need to sleep. Now, I've used that one quite a lot because you can set the tracker to monitor one of 3 options. Get by, so just the amount of sleep that you need just to get by, fun enough. You've got perform, i.e. that you want to give your best, but you are just operating at a particular level. And then peak, i.e. you want to have peak performance, so how does it elevate your sleep to get to the highest level that you can possibly give in the day? So funnily enough, get by is the lowest level of sleep, perform is obviously higher, and the peak is highest. So for me, I've seen during the week my sleep diverge between what I've got and what I need, and then at the weekends it closes because I'm able to have a lie-in and maybe recover better. Interesting. Do you actually need the app to tell you that? Debatable. You can probably tell how recovered you are, but what I do like is the fact that it ties into the day strain, so that if you're thinking, can I push myself a little bit more, or do I need to go and do anything extra, it does show that you can actually increase your day strain whilst impacting your recovery or impacting your sleep. And that, how it all links together, is actually really insightful. Other parts to mention are when we're looking at these metrics, it does do it over a weekly and a monthly basis. Each week is on a rolling week, so the moment you start to wear the fitness tracker, it will then begin to capture that information. And then at the end of each week, it creates a weekly assessment, which you can download. And then at the end of each month, it actually captures a monthly assessment. Funny that. Having worn it for a year now, it's easy to see trends that have occurred over the year. Now, this is a slightly strange year, having gone through COVID and lockdown, so sometimes it's not been as easy to maintain activity levels. But sleep should get better, but in actual fact, because we're all a bit stressed, sleep's been impacted. But as I'll show you here, you can go through the report and see the trends that are pointed out from it. As I mentioned, the strain coach is what makes Whoop unique. So in days gone by, had I used this when I was training for my Ironman, it would have been really interesting to see whether the Whoop was telling me that I needed to recover more, or I could actually push my body a bit harder. I did follow quite a prescriptive training plan, and over the course of 32 weeks, it was quite intensive, but it would have been interesting to see how my body was responding to that and comparing it to a fitness tracker like Whoop. For you and I in everyday activities, if we're sat behind the desk doing a day job, it's probably less important, but it does show that if you are becoming more sedentary, that you can go out and push yourself, and that might be going for a brisk walk, having a run, having a cycle, doing a workout, whatever it might be. But it is all designed to help keep you moving and improve your health and fitness. Unlike something like the Apple Watch, which just tells you to move, and it's obviously got the rings that you want to close, the Whoop is designed to show the amount of strain and effort that you can put to your body to either create the gains or required recovery. Obviously, you can change a lot of the settings around the amount of strain that you want to put through your body, and that's where the strain coach comes into action. It is quite intuitive, but to be honest, and I work in the data world, it can be a bit overwhelming with the amount of information in there. Is it a cool bit of kit? Absolutely. I mean, it is really cool, and it looks pretty cool. Now, I bought the Whoop because I wanted to wear a watch as well. It just so happens to be that I'm wearing my Apple Watch at the moment, so I'm now wearing effectively two fitness trackers, but the Whoop is pretty inconspicuous and you can wear it with a suit, and unless somebody also knows about Whoop, the chances are they'll just think it's a fitness tracker. When you start using the Whoop, at the end of each day, or in actual fact the following day when it syncs, it will ask you to input into a journal. Now, the journal is their way of tracking how things are going. So for example, you need to indicate, did you have any caffeine? Did you have any alcohol? Did you take any sleep medication? Did you eat late at night? These are the default settings, but you can actually change those. So at the end of each day, or the beginning of each day, as you go through and log what you did, you can add to it. So you can include things like reading in bed. Did you reduce the screen time? Did you reduce any blue light time? The biohacking is a big focus of Whoop. So they are continually looking to capture more and more data to help you understand your body and your trends and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It does get a bit annoying, but you can tailor them. And even in recent days, they've started capturing whether you've had a COVID vaccine, whether you've had COVID, or whether you're ill, anything like that. So it does show it. And when you look back over time, you can see, well, actually the days that I had some booze, I didn't sleep very well. Were there any days that I had more caffeine? Did it affect the performance on the sports field? How did it all tie together? Obviously, the information that you put in is then captured by Whoop, so they have that information. So do just be aware that if you are a bit freaked out by giving away your data, this is going to be one of those moments, although I'm guessing if you're wearing this, you're probably not fussed about it because you're actually giving them your data even though they're giving it back to you. Anyway, don't want to get into the whole GDPR side of things because that is just a nightmare. Now, is it accurate? In short, yes, I think so. Is it accurate? In short, I think it's not too far off. Now, I've worn the Apple Watch for a wee while now, and in terms of tracking workouts, it's generally along the same lines. Now, I know the sensors can be different. You've got red PPGs and green PPGs. Not going to get into that now because, quite frankly, you won't really care. But what you do need to make sure is that you have a good connection between the sensor and your body. At this point, it's probably worth mentioning that you can get accessories. So yes, this is where you wear it generally when you buy the Whoop strap, but you can get bicep sleeves. So I've seen it used in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because you can't have anything sharp sticking out, and you also see it from a Major League Baseball and NBA and golfers. You can see people wearing them. So they're increasingly bringing out cool and new straps and accessories to help you capture your stats. Now, having been an endurance athlete in the past, and I've used the Garmin fitness trackers, and that comes with the chest monitor, I think the chest monitor is probably a bit more accurate when it comes to understanding the strain. Now, it might be because some of the activities I've done, the straps moved a little bit, but to be quite honest, I don't think they're too far off. If you have a chest strap and you've used a Garmin or a Polar activity tracker, I probably wouldn't bother getting a Whoop unless the strain and the recovery coaches is what you're looking for. It captures the same amount of information, and one of the big parts is the moment you've got it off your Garmin, it is yours on your computer, but the moment you stop paying the membership, Whoop has your data. Now, I'll come to that in a moment. But in terms of accuracy, I know that there are times when people will say that it doesn't capture the workouts correctly, or that some people have been on a spin class and it's under captured calories. Again, it does come down to depending on the connection of the Whoop, and I guess there will always be some slight differences. The question is, can you deal with these differences? For me, I look at the big broad brush, insights and trends, so I'm keen to understand where the directional stuff is going rather than necessarily the nitty gritty. If there are any outliers, that's what I like looking at. Now, I'm sure you can go and Google and see comparisons to the Apple Watch, and to be honest, I don't like wearing a watch at night, which is one of the reasons why I bought the Whoop. So this is when things get really interesting. Would I encourage you to buy a Whoop 3.0? If you can get past the fact of saying to somebody, yes, it's a Whoop strap, and getting some very quizzical and funny looks, what do I like about the Whoop? It's a really cool and innovative company. There's absolutely no doubt that they're pumping a great deal of cash into innovation and bringing those features to you or to me on a daily basis. You can see that reflected in the journal and the way that it's updating and all of the insights they're trying to give you. And with that, you can also use the community aspect, because you can create communities a bit like you can on Strava, for example, and people can encourage each other as they go through their daily lives and trying to improve their health and fitness. If you're big into communities, I think this will be a great aspect for you. If you're not, the chances are you're not going to use it. Unless you want to create a bit of competition like you can on the Apple Watch with other friends in terms of closing the rings each day, then yes, you are probably going to use the community aspect. But for me, it was a nice to have, but I didn't really use it. With all these things, it's about accountability. So the Whoop strap holds you accountable because each day it tells you what you need to do to increase your health and fitness. Or it tells you the amount of sleep that you need to recover. Now that is great because it just keeps you on track within the guardrails that you're operating in. But the question is, do you need a fitness tracker to tell you that? The chances are you could probably ask a friend on a weekly basis, how are you getting on? And that might save you the cost of buying a fitness tracker. But if you do like the data, then the chances are it's probably going to be helpful. Okay, so what don't I like? Now, having just done a bit of thinking around this prior to making the video, it seems that the things I don't like are actually a bit longer than the things that I do like. So this took me slightly by surprise. Firstly, sometimes it doesn't record your workout. So for example, if I set a workout going on my Apple Watch, and it's so easy to start a workout on there, you have to manually add them to the Whoop app. So for example, it doesn't capture yoga, it doesn't capture strength training. It does capture things like running and cycling, but when I go for a walk every morning, it doesn't capture my walking, which means I have to then add it each time. Again, very much a first world problem, but if you're going to spend money on a recurring basis for a fitness tracker, you would hope that it tracks your fitness activities, hence being a fitness tracker. Whereas in this case, sometimes it doesn't. Now that is annoying. It doesn't have an airplane mode, so if you're worried about radiation and waves going through your body. There is nothing you could do apart from take it off, and if you take it off then you're not capturing the data, so why would you do that? Something to think about, but obviously when you go on a plane it actually doesn't matter. It's not as if it's interacting with any of the communications and controls. I've been on aeroplanes and I've worn it, and to be quite honest, it's quite interesting to see how your body reacts to flying, although sometimes when you do change time zones and it then resyncs, it can sometimes throw out the sleep. So for example, you'll have gone to sleep at 4 in the afternoon and then woken up at like 8 in the morning. But that's all part of the time zone and the GPS syncing, which I guess they will get better at, but it's not really a big issue, and I would probably let them off on that one. It can also take a little bit of time to sync. So for example, if I keep my phone in the front room or away from the Whoop strap and it's out of range, it then takes probably longer than you would expect to resync, and it will say Whoop is catching up, Whoop is catching up, Whoop is catching up. And that's its way of just catching up with the activities that you've done. Is it a big problem? No. Is it annoying? It is a little bit, although to be fair, if you've just got your phone sat next to you most of the time, the chances are it's not going to happen too often. The tracker is pretty good at connecting to the app, and I haven't had too many issues around connectivity. I know that others have struggled a little bit, but to be honest, if you just turn Bluetooth off and on again and resync, it's actually pretty straightforward. Now, we haven't talked around cost. The reason for me slightly hesitating is that Whoop operates on a monthly membership basis. The problem is it's expensive. Now, unlike things like the Oura Ring, which are around sort of £200 to £400, the Whoop strap is around, although it says $30, and in the UK it turns out at being about £26, £27 a month, is expensive. Now, £25 a month over the course of a year adds up to being way more than the Oura Ring, and probably not far off what you would pay for an Apple Watch. Now, the downside to that is you don't own the data. So the moment you stop paying your membership, the data is captured and held by Whoop. Now, you can download and extract your weekly and monthly assessments, but just bear in mind that the moment you stop wearing it or stop using it or stop paying for it, then the data is locked with Whoop. I think you can ask for an export, and I would be very surprised if they don't do that, but the integration with the app pretty much comes to a standstill, and your features are limited in that regard. Now, if you're not fussed about it and you like the activities and the strain coach, then it's probably worth it. But if you're going to start wearing this for years to come, I'm not entirely sure it's worth paying that. I would rather pay for the Phoenix 5 Garmin strap, or the new Oura Ring, or a new Fitbit, and try out others, because I'm not convinced that the subscription model for me is value for money. Yes, I have worn it for a year and I have paid that for a year because I wanted to see what it was like. But if you're new, I'm not sure it's worth it. So if you do have an existing fitness tracker, you need to look at how much the strain coach and the additional insights that something like Whoop gives you compared to the amount of money that it's going to cost you on a recurring basis. At this point, I'd also like to give you some of the insights that I've learned having worn it for a year. So I don't take it off very often, except when I go to bed. Now, because I wear 2 devices, I take the Apple Watch off when I charge it, and then I actually put the Whoop strap on my other wrist. Now, the reason for doing that is it can be really irritating having the same strap on the same wrist day after day after day after day. Now, also, I found that when I sleep, for some reason, I push the Whoop strap up my arm, and if I had it all on the left wrist, which is the one I wear it on normally, it just became irritating, and I found that I had a bit of a rash. Now, that's probably me sleeping, but I would encourage you that if you are going to wear something like this on a daily basis, do alternate the arms, because otherwise it can get quite irritating. As I said, I did buy the leather strap. Don't bother. It slips, it looks cool, but it's not very user-friendly. And I haven't tried any of the other accessories, partly because I haven't needed to, but also I haven't wanted to spend the money. So that's it. That is my review on the Whoop 3.0, having worn it for a year, and my choice around whether you should buy one. In summary, if you're struggling for motivation, it might be of benefit. It certainly is quite cool looking at the strain coaches and looking at the insights, but to be quite honest, you could probably get a far cheaper alternative if you just want to monitor your sleep and see some of the sleep insights. For me, I'm going to persevere with my Apple Watch. I'm probably going to try the Oura Ring, and I'm going to look at the new Garmin range to see how that can work, because to be honest, from an endurance perspective, that's where I'd like to take things. So my honest take in looking at this, having worn it for a year, is it's a cool gadget with a terrible name. Is it worth the money? depends how much you're going to get out of the insights. Yes, somebody like Fitbit will tell you your sleep, and to be fair, my other half tells me that the sleep tracking is pretty good. Is the Whoop worth £27 a month? Debatable. I would probably say no, but I will leave it up to you. So if you've made it this far, good on you. Please do smash the like button and make sure that you subscribe. Do ensure that the bell wobbles. That just means that you will receive a notification the moment that new content is released. So with that, I am going to log into my app, see what my strain coach tells me, and decide to go for a walk. But with that, I will wish you all a good day, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.